The brutal assault and stabbing of a teenager that remained unsolved for over 4 decades has finally been solved thanks to DNA evidence and genetic genealogy testing. Karen Stitt was a 15-year-old student at Palo Alto High School and had recently moved to the South Bay, California from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. On September 2, 1982, Karen took the bus from Palo Alto to Sunnyvale, California, to spend the day with her boyfriend, David Woods. The couple played miniature golf together and grabbed a drink at a 7-Eleven. That evening, around midnight, after their day together, David went to drop Karen off at a bus stop near El Camino Real and Wolf Road in Sunnyvale. Little did he know that this would be the last time that he would see her alive. The next morning, a delivery truck driver found Karen's naked body about 100 yards away from the bus stop, hidden behind a blood-stained cinderblock wall. Her wrists were bound with her shirt, and her jacket was tied around her left ankle. She had been indecently assaulted, and she had suffered 59 stab wounds. 18 of those wounds were to her heart. Despite intensive early investigations and the collection of DNA evidence, which included blood and bodily fluids, no potential leads emerged and the case went cold for decades. Her boyfriend was originally considered a suspect in the case, but he was eventually cleared by forensic DNA analysis in the early 2000s. Almost 4 decades later, in 2019, Detective Matt Hutchison of the Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety began working with an expert in investigative genetic genealogy to identify the perpetrator. In 2021, the genealogist told the authorities that the perpetrator was likely one of 4 brothers from Fresno, California. One of them was Gary Jean Ramirez. In April 2022, Ramirez was identified as the likely source of the evidence, the blood and bodily fluid that was left at the crime scene. The DA's crime lab confirmed the identification. Ramirez was arrested at his home in the town of Makawao, Maui, in Hawaii, on August 2, 2022. On August 10th, he appeared in court in Maui and agreed to be extradited to Santa Clara County, California. He was convicted in the first degree. On February 24, 2025, Ramirez pled no contest. On May 12, 2025, the 78-year-old was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. He will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. Ramirez will be committed to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. He pleaded guilty after other criminal enhancements were dropped. The prosecutor said that many of Karen's family and friends attended the sentencing hearing. Santa Clara District Attorney Jeff Rosen said the following when Ramirez was convicted: "Today, I am thinking of a young woman whose life and future were torn from her." Karen Stitt would have been 57 years old today. Her case was solved by forensic science, a remarkably stubborn detective, and a determined prosecutor. Karen's loved ones are happy that the perpetrator has finally been caught. At the sentencing, they expressed their grief and emphasized that she has never been forgotten. Skeletal remains that was found on 3 different beaches in Jersey Shore, New Jersey 30 years ago has finally been identified. The case of scattered man John Doe is one of the oldest cold cases that has been resolved through forensic investigative genetic genealogy. Between 1995 and 2013, skeletal remains were discovered across multiple beach locations in South Jersey, including Longport, Margate, and Ocean City. Despite significant forensic efforts, these remains were collectively referred to as scattered man John Doe. A break in the case came only 30 years after the first remains were found. In 2023, the New Jersey State Police partnered with the Ramapo College of New Jersey's Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center for their services on this case. In November, a sample was sent to Intermountain Forensics for whole genome sequencing, in which they were able to develop a SNP DNA profile. The team worked on the case for almost a year until they found a likely candidate of whom the remains might belong to. On April 8, 2025, undergraduate students at the New Jersey College have helped to identify the skeletal remains of a sea captain who made his final, ill-fated voyage nearly 200 years ago. The remains belong to Henry Goodsell. Initially, the experts were not even sure how old the bones were. New Jersey State Police forensic anthropologist Dr. Anna Delaney said, We kind of kept going back and forth between, are they historic? Are they not historic? This is absolutely amazing because after all of this time, Henry has his name. 29-year-old Henry was the captain of the schooner Oriental. The Oriental was hired in 1844 to deliver 60 tons of marble to a Philadelphia boarding school. After setting sail from Connecticut, the ship made it within a mile of the shoreline before a leak in the vessel dragged Henry and his small crew of 4 to their watery graves. Students at the New Jersey College launched a search for genetic relatives and built out family trees that revealed ancestral ties to Connecticut. They also started looking into records of shipwrecks. It was that creative step that really helped them narrow in on Henry's identity. The investigators were able to track down Henry's great-great-granddaughter in Maryland. She provided a DNA sample that helped to confirm his identity. Henry's family does not want his bones, so they will stay at a state repository indefinitely. A body was found floating near a bridge in Clearwater, Pinellas County in Florida in 1993. His identity remained a mystery for 31 years until DNA advancements could finally help identify him and bring his family some answers. On November 29, 1993, a body of a man was found floating near the Clearwater Pass Bridge in Pinellas County, outside of Tampa Bay. The police found a neatly folded pile of clothing on the shoreline near a lifeguard stand on Clearwater Beach, but there was no identification among the clothing or on the body. The victim was a white male with short gray hair and blue eyes. He was between the ages of 60 and 80. He was 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 118 pounds. An autopsy later conducted to determine the man's cause of demise was inconclusive, but the medical examiner did not suspect any foul play. The police also did not think the man was a victim of a crime. Deputy Police Chief Michael Wallach said, "The clothes, as described, were neatly folded in the sand. That was not usually consistent with a criminal act. For more than 30 years, the man was only known as Pinellas County John Doe, 1993. In 2024, the case caught the attention of Casey Connolly. She reached out to the Clearwater Police Department, offering to help. Casey is the co-founder of Moxie Forensic Investigations, a non-profit group of volunteers who use genetic genealogy to help the police solve cold cases. Samples of the man's DNA were collected again and submitted for testing. Eventually, the forensic group identified a potential family member, a 94-year-old. A swab of his DNA was submitted as comparison. In June 2025, the family member, who lives in North Carolina, was told the man found in Florida in 1993 was his father, Edman Eric Gleed. Edman was 84 years old when he passed away. His son had reported him missing in Fairfax County, Virginia. It is not clear how or why Edman traveled to Florida from Fairfax County. He might have been in the early stages of dementia when he left his Fairfax home. Edman was a hat manufacturer by trade and a devoted father and grandfather. Clearwater's Deputy Police Chief Michael Wallach said in a statement, "We are happy that we are able to provide the family some answers and some closure as to what happened with their loved one." In a separate statement, Ed Adams, the assistant on Edman's case at Moxie Forensic Investigations, said the case has been close to the hearts of everyone on the team. He added, "We are all honored to have played a part in returning Edman Gleed to his family." A woman whose body was found behind a North Texas truck stop near Interstate 20 was finally publicly identified decades later. On October 7, 1998, campers camping in a field northeast of Petro Travel Center in Weatherford, Texas, found the decomposed remains of a woman in a thick brush behind a North Texas truck stop near Interstate 20. The woman was found wearing a white bra, white socks, white or beige panties, and a blue and white windsuit. She also had a large blue shoulder bag with expensive beige prescription glasses, a long brown wig, and a bottle of mineral water. A gun with one shell casing was also found nearby. The investigators believe that she lost her life due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The investigators estimated that she was between 35 and 55 years old and had $30,000 or $35,000 worth of extensive dental work, including gold foil fillings with porcelain veneers. Despite DNA being entered into the combined DNA index system and countless leads being pursued, no match was ever found. Over the years, the case was revisited, but each effort led to another end, until 25 years later, in September 2023. Retired Deputy Chief Greg Lance encouraged Lieutenant Johnny Qualls and the Cold Case Unit to re-examine the case of Weatherford Jane Doe with the help of modern forensic DNA technology. The team decided to explore forensic genetic genealogy. In 2023, the Weatherford Police Department and the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office sent forensic evidence to Othram's laboratory in hopes that advanced DNA testing could help identify the woman. Some of the woman's teeth was sent to Othram. The lab extracted DNA from the teeth and built a genealogical profile that gave them the name of a possible family member, David Gillespie. Lieutenant Qualls reached out to David around Christmas 2023. When he learned that David's mother had been missing for 25 years and that she commonly wore a wig and a certain type of glasses, he said that he felt pretty sure that the unidentified woman was Nellie Gillespie. A DNA test taken by David confirmed this. Her identity was publicly identified on February 24, 2025, by the Weatherford Police Department. She was last known to be in Jackson, Mississippi on or around August 15, 1998. She had called her son, informing him that she was traveling west, possibly to Arizona, but was never heard from again. David plans to bury his mother in their family lot in Mississippi. A suspected serial predator, known as the cloverleaf predator, that is accused of a series of indecent assaults in 2013 and 2014 in Sacramento County, California, has been arrested and convicted. On December 10, 2013, the first victim of the cloverleaf predator was walking from a bus stop to meet her family at the bowling alley when she was grabbed from behind and dragged into the embankment of the cloverleaf section of Madison and Interstate 80. The perpetrator then strangled and indecently assaulted her before he took her belongings, including her identification. He told her that if she reported him, he would end her life. On January 8, 2014, the second victim was walking with her luggage to meet a friend who was going to give her a ride to the airport. When the victim got lost, she was offered a ride by the perpetrator. In the car, he groped the victim, stabbed her in the neck with a knife, strangled her by her scarf, and hit her multiple times. He then indecently assaulted her on the side of the cloverleaf at Madison and Interstate 80. Like he did with the first victim, he took her wallet and told her that if she reported him, he would find her. 2 months later, on March 8th, the third victim was walking home from a club early in the morning when the perpetrator saw her walking and offered her a ride. When they got to her apartment, he pulled into an empty parking lot. As the victim tried to leave, the man strangled her and groped her under her clothes before the victim was able to escape. All three victims had an assault kit done, and DNA was collected from the clothing of all three victims. Despite several investigations at the time, the case went cold. The suspect had roamed undetected for years before the Sacramento investigators used investigative genetic genealogy to identify the suspect as J.D. Wallace Simien. Simien was arrested 7 years after the last crime, in November 2021. A jury convicted Simien on October 31, 2024, of 2 counts of kidnapping to commit another crime, 2 counts of forcible indecent assault, battery by restraint, and assault with intent to commit indecent assault. The jury also found him guilty of kidnapping and using a knife. The investigators linked Simien to several indecent assaults in the northern part of Sacramento County and gave him the nickname of the Cloverleaf Predator because the assaults happened near freeway entrances and exits, forming a shape on the map resembling a cloverleaf pattern. On February 21, 2025, Sacramento Superior Court Judge Marianne G. Gilliard handed down a sentence of 82 years to life in prison. Gilliard spoke about the sustained fear and psychological damage these women experienced for several years, knowing their attacker was still out there with the ability to track them down online and find them. Gilliard addressed Simien with some of his victims in attendance. She said, "You are not, Mr. Simien, the typical offender I see in Department 12. And for 10+ years, these women have been looking over their shoulders, terrified that you will come back. So for those who have come to this court for Simien's sentencing, you do not have to look over your shoulders anymore." In Houston County, Georgia, a woman was brutally attacked in her own home one night. It took 13 years for the perpetrator to be identified and for her to finally have some sense of peace, knowing the monster that attacked her will no longer be a free man. One night in May 2010, a 40-year-old woman woke up to use the bathroom and noticed someone was in her living room. When she called out to the person, he told her to shut up and followed her to the bathroom. The woman tried to fight him off before he bit her finger and punched her in the face multiple times until she was unconscious. While the woman regained consciousness, the man was busy indecently assaulting her. By the time the officers with the Warner Robins Police Department arrived at her house, the man was gone and they found the woman beaten and bloody with multiple injuries on her face and finger where he bit her. She was taken to Houston Medical Center to be treated. As part of her treatment, her fingernails were swabbed for potential DNA. The swabs were sent to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Department of Forensic Sciences. At the time, however, law enforcement was unable to develop a suspect, and the case went cold. 13 years later, in August 2023, DNA retrieved from the victim matched to 31-year-old Dendrick Solomon. Solomon was 17 years old at the time of the crime. He lived only a few minutes away from the victim. He was indicted in November 2023 on indecent assault, aggravated sodomy, and first-degree burglary charges. Since Solomon admitted to his indecent assault charge, his aggravated sodomy and burglary charges were dismissed as a result. On March 20, 2025, the Centerville man admitted to assaulting his neighbor. Solomon was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Houston County District Attorney Eric Edwards said, "This case is a powerful reminder that justice does not have an expiration date. For 13 years, the victim in this case lived with the trauma of what was done to her, not knowing if her attacker would ever be identified. Thanks to continuous advancements in forensic science and the perseverance of law enforcement, today she has an answer, and justice has been served." The prosecutor in this case, Justin Duane, said, "What happened in this case is every woman's nightmare. A complete stranger breaking into a house and brutally beating and indecently assaulting a woman. It is horrifying. Although it took us a while, I am grateful to be able to say today that justice has been done. Mr. Solomon will spend the rest of his life in prison, and the victim in this case now gets the vindication she deserves." A fallout over inheritance money led a sister to do something unimaginable. Shortly after midnight on January 17, 2015, 40-year-old David Huddleston was sitting in his car with his wife, Talisha Huddleston, behind their home on Cato Road in northwest Nashville, Tennessee, when a man approached and shouted demands at them. The robbery turned fatal after one of the men swung open a door of the car. David was fatally shot in the chest while trying to protect his wife. The shooter fled the scene on foot. His wife was unharmed in the altercation. David lived with his wife on their 300-acre farm in Nashville. The crime remained unsolved for years until Nashville's cold case unit decided to reinvestigate the case, with Detective Curtis Hafley leading the investigation. This decision was made due to an inmate that came forward with information regarding the case. Much of the prosecution's case relied on this inmate, Trenton Raybon's, testimony. He said that Isaiah Berkeley confessed while they were in jail together for unrelated offenses. The investigation then uncovered that it was not a lone robber, but a conspiracy involving 3 suspects: Antonio Martin, Isaiah Berkeley, and Jamario Askew. The prosecutors later revealed a haunting motive. David's own sister allegedly arranged the robbery to confiscate inheritance money. David's sister had fallen back on house payments and was in danger of losing her home when she allegedly commissioned Berkeley to rob her brother. She will not be named because she has not been charged with the crime in this case. The prosecutors argued that the sister contacted Berkeley, the son of one of her friends. Berkeley then recruited Martin and Askew to carry out the robbery. Martin and Askew will be tried separately from Berkeley. In January 2022, the 3 men were arrested and formally charged in the first degree. David Hopkins, the defense attorney, had argued the state's case against Berkeley was weak as it lacked DNA, fingerprints, or eyewitness testimony that implicated him. He also argued that Raybon stood to gain in his own criminal prosecutions by going to the police and testifying against Berkeley. Berkeley had been tried for 1 count each of first-degree slaying and felony slaying, a type of charge that can apply to someone who participates in a serious crime that leads to demise, even if they did not end anyone's life. David Huddleston's life was taken in a violent, premeditated act that began as a robbery but escalated due to a betrayal close to home. Nearly 10 years after his demise, the courts began delivering long-awaited justice. On March 21, 2025, a Nashville jury convicted 28-year-old Isaiah Berkeley of first-degree premeditated slaying. The conviction carries an automatic sentence of life imprisonment. While Berkeley spends his life in prison, Atlanta's judicial system continues working on the cases of the other co-defendants. David is mourned and remembered by his family and community for the love and courage he showed that night. Though justice came late, it marked an important step in honoring his memory. A kidnapping and indecent assault case of a woman that happened almost 4 decades ago in Stone Mountain, DeKalb County, in Georgia, has finally been solved thanks to advancements in DNA technology. On December 30th, 1988, a 20-year-old woman was heading out to meet up with her boyfriend. As she was busy locking the front door of their Weatherly Drive apartment, she turned around and a man in a ski mask put a knife to her throat, forcing her to go into the woods behind the apartment complex. The man then indecently assaulted her at knife point and threatened to end her life. Afterward, he demanded she stay on the ground before he ran from the scene. Once her attacker ran off, she fled to a nearby neighborhood, and a resident helped her call her boyfriend, who took her to the police station. The officers recovered her purse and other items scattered in the woods and transported her to Grady Memorial Hospital for an indecent assault examination. Although DNA testing was not available at the time, the assault kit was preserved by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. In 2015, almost 3 decades later, DeKalb County joined a federally funded effort through the Bureau of Justice Assistance's National Assault Kit Initiative, which aimed to process long untested assault kits. In June 2019, the evidence was tested, which led to a CODIS match of an Albany man, Reginald Colwell. A court-ordered DNA sample confirmed the match. The prosecutors said that Colwell had been living in DeKalb County at the time of the attack. On May 20, 2025, a DeKalb County jury found 58-year-old Colwell guilty on charges of kidnapping, indecent assault, and aggravated assault for the 1988 attack. Superior Court Judge Gregory A. Adams, who presided over the trial, handed down the sentence on June 3, 2025, ordering the terms to be served consecutively. He has been sentenced to 2 life terms, plus 20 years in prison.